welcome back to another video. So as promised, today we're going to be discussing a hormone balancing diet. Now in today's video we're going to be touching on what a hormone balancing diet looks like firstly, but also some tips and tricks to help you kind of along the way, and also really just make things not so complicated. Like a hormone balancing diet really isn't that complicated at all. Please remember, if you do enjoy this video, do let me know by giving it a thumbs up. Really helpful for me to get an idea of which content you guys like watching. And also, if you enjoy this video and you're not already, make sure to subscribe to the channel, but obviously you'll make your judgment once you've watched it. But anyway, let's just dive straight on in. Okay, so firstly, what is a hormone balancing diet? To me, this is my own opinion. I think there's kind of four main pillars to this. So number one is a diet to support your blood sugar levels. That, in my opinion, is the absolute crucial pillar of a hormone balancing diet. If you're trying to balance your hormones, you need to be supporting your blood sugar levels and also your stress. Those two are like the base layer. They are so important. The second thing is it needs to be an anti-inflammatory diet, which is really what we should all be striving for anyway. And also all of us should be trying to support our blood sugars anyway. So again, this is why I'm saying like a hormone balancing diet shouldn't be anything crazy out of the normal, of what we should be getting. Number three is a nutrient dense diet. So a diet which is making sure that we're meeting all of our nutrient needs, and that is from macro to micronutrients. So from our macro, like protein, fats, carbs, fiber, all that kind of stuff, to micronutrients such as our vitamins and minerals. And then the fourth pillar is to not have a restrictive diet. And I'm adding that in because I think this is so important, and this is why I'm emphasizing like this hormone balancing diet shouldn't be overwhelming or, something that is like an absolute burden on you or something that you feel really restrictive with. Because the issue with restriction with diets, if you are restricting too many things, it's becoming overwhelming. That is going to create a lot of stress. And as I said just a minute ago, stress is also one of those baseline pillars for hormone balance. Like if you are stressing out because of your dietary choices, like that is totally counterproductive to any dietary choice that you are trying to make. So that is my fourth pillar for a hormone balancing diet. We don't want any restriction around here. We want like freedom with our food choices, and to create a diet that we really love and enjoy. Now I think this is a good point for me to also say, me sharing this hormone balancing diet, this is not to say this diet is gonna fix all your concerns. There might be people who watch this video and this does fix all your concerns, but some of you it may not, and that comes down to the fact that all of us are very different, unique, have different hormone imbalances. Hormones as well, can I also just touch on? Yes, we have our sex hormones, and I think that's what most of us are probably thinking of right now, but we have other hormones like our stress hormone, which is cortisol, our blood sugars is insulin, we have our neurotransmitters, they're considered hormones as well. So hormones aren't just our sex hormones. So when it comes to hormone imbalance, there's lots of different areas that actually come into the conversation. But today's video is very, general, across the board, kind of baseline. But of course, if you were going to work with a practitioner or like myself, then would definitely probably be some individual things we would add on top of this diet. Okay, so let's dive into these tips. So tip number one is understand the formula. Okay, when you understand this formula and you start practicing this, honestly, not only does it make a huge difference, but also it really is freeing, because you really get to see actually when you stick to the formula, you can really practice that balance and moderation approach within your diet and really release any restrictions and fears you have around foods. Because I always say when people are having issues, unless it's an intolerance or an allergy, most of the time it's actually stemming from how the body's responding to the food, not necessarily the food itself. So this formula is really, the main focus is blood sugar balance here, and it is try and start with your proteins and leave the carbohydrates or starches and sugars of that meal to last where possible, and then anything else like your fats, your veggies, your fibers, all that kind of stuff, that can go in the middle. Okay, now let's give a couple of examples of this. Of course, if you're having a meal, like let's say you've got some salmon, you've got some rice and some veggies, the best way to actually eat that is to actually eat the salmon and veggies first and then the rice, and you will have such a better sugar response in comparison to if you go straight for the carbs and get rice in and then go in with the salmon and veggies. Like a simple change like that could honestly change how your body responds and interacts with that food, and how your hormones respond and interact with that food. Now, granted, sometimes it's not possible. And of course, you know, there's an element of like, I want to enjoy my meal together, and that's totally fine. So let's take example of like a burger and chips, okay? In this case, of course, you're gonna have carbs in the bun, but even just so eating that burger with the bun in one before you dig into the chips, you see that also can have a better response in comparison to getting that plate and going, oh, chips, go, let's like straight in with snacking in with chips and then having the burger. So it can still work in ways like that. Another example would be, let's say you do want a sweet treat, okay? Because of course, you know, you want to be able to have some of these things in your diet. Instead of having a sweet treat as a snack and just having like it on its own, like in the afternoon, because that's on its own and there isn't any of those other macronutrients like the protein or probably healthy fats and stuff like that with it, it's much more likely to give you a big spike in your glucose. Now, a better time to have that snack would be at the end of a meal. So if you know you do want to have a little bit of a sweet treat, have it after your lunch or have it after your dinner. Choose a timing like that and you're going to have a much better response to it because your body is prepared for it. So that, in my opinion, is such a great kind of tool to know when it comes to nutrition, and I use it with clients, I use it with myself, and I honestly see such huge improvements when people really tap into that. And I think coming off of this point, one of the really key things in this with the hormone balancing diet is really making sure you're getting enough protein. That is a thing that I see lacking in most diets when people bring their food diary to me, is there's not enough protein, and most people's diets is very carb heavy, and that's the first place you're going to be going wrong when it comes to supporting hormones. We want a balance of all the macronutrients, so we do want everyone there, but we want them all in balance. We don't want one, you know, really outweighing the others. So think about that. And then when it comes to proteins, this is my tip when you're going shopping. I kind of think about things in 3 different sections. I've got my breakfast proteins, I've got my main proteins. So my main proteins are usually my dinner proteins. And then I have what's called my add-on proteins. Because I know, you know, when it comes to lunch, sometimes we don't have time to always meal prep a full-on meal. Sometimes we haven't had time to batch cook. So that's where my add-on proteins come in really handy. So I can have something that's a bit more easy and accessible for lunch. Let's say you are having a wrap. It's like use some of those add-on proteins to add a bit more protein either to the side or maybe into the actual like wrap as a filling. But yeah, that is kind of how my brain works when I go shopping, and I honestly think plan your protein sources out, what you're going to get before you go shopping, because also if there's anything that people miss off their shopping list, it also tends to be protein. Okay, so the next tip for your hormone balancing diet would definitely be reduce those refined foods, so processed foods, refined carbs, all that kind of stuff, and get more whole foods into the diet. This is where we're looking at the nutrient part of the pillars, you know what I'm saying, of a hormone balancing diet. A lot of these processed foods, not only are they filled with so many unnecessary extras, like all the inflammatory oils and sugars and all this kind of stuff, which can be very disruptive, but they actually are less nutrient dense. Like, for example, let's take like white bread versus brown bread. White bread, to get it white, a lot of that fiber and everything has actually been taken out. So when you have the whole grain option or like the whole food option and making things more from scratch, you're gonna be really supporting your nutrient levels across the board, okay? So we're looking at vitamins and minerals and things like that in particular. So yeah, definitely think about less refined, more whole foods. And a really good tip actually when you're going food shopping is try and stick to the perimeters of the supermarket. So if you think about the supermarket layout, you find all the fresh produce tends to be around the sides of a supermarket, and then you have your aisles in the middle, and that's where you're going to find all those processed, like, you know, all that kind of stuff. So obviously there's going to be exceptions in there, of course you will still shop in that bit, but I'm just saying like that's kind of like the idea. Stick more to the outside, less so in the middle. Now, a little batch cooking and like preparation tip when it comes to this point is things like your grains. You know, if you are having grains in your diet like quinoa, if you are having brown rice, if you are having, you know, things like that, you know, any variety, you can batch cook these for the week. I batch cook quinoa every single week pretty much, or sometimes I do switch up the type of grain. But yeah, I batch cook it, have it in a Tupperware, and then that just means, particularly for lunches, like if you just need something quick, you know, to add to your lunchbox, if you're making up like a bit of a Buddha bowl, for example, or I don't know, whatever you're having, or if you're having dinner and you're having salmon that night, you're thinking, oh, I need like a carb with this, you could just grab a scoop of quinoa. It's such a nice time-saving tip, because usually it is actually the grains and things which actually take a lot of time. And I don't know about you, but they're always the part that I'm always like, oh, I can't be bothered to cook that. Because like, you know, when you put like a piece of salmon or something in the oven or whatever it might be, like that's like easy. I can just put it in, forget about it, walk away. When it comes to like cooking grains and stuff, I'm like, oh, I just have to keep watching it, and it just like feels like an effort. So batch cooking is an absolute, you know, key tip for me when it comes to that. Okay, tip number 3 is definitely all about rotation, and this comes into so many different areas. So the first area is definitely fats, okay? Rotate your fats. I kind of have a rule where I don't repeat a fat twice. So for example, if I have avocado for breakfast, I won't have avocado for lunch. I'll choose a different fat source for lunch, like extra virgin olive oil, you know, something else. The reason why I'm saying rotate your fats is because one, the rotation is obviously going to help from a nutrient point of view, because obviously all different sources are going to give us different things. So that's one tick. But the other thing as well, very conscious of, is really keeping a happy balance between your omega-3 and omega-6. And this also really comes into the skin in particular as well. So I know this is about hormones, but I'm assuming a lot of you also are struggling with your skin as well, particularly with the kind of content I create on this channel. So yeah, we really want to be mindful of that balance with fats. So really making sure that you're getting your omega-3s in as well. So oily fish, that's really one of the key sources, or maybe consider supplementing if you don't eat fish. I really do recommend that. But yeah, when it comes to other fats, like for example, avocado, that's a very nutrient dense food, and sometimes, you know, you can have too much of a good thing. Sometimes I see people, if they eat it for lunch and also for dinner and also for breakfast, it's like too much avocado, and that can actually affect their skin. So I always say, enjoy everything, but just keep rotating it, keep changing things up. I always say, if you're in doubt of what fat to use extra virgin olive oil, drizzle it raw on top of your meals. Also fantastic for bile production, which is really important for that detoxification process, which we need for hormonal balance. So yeah, really love a good quality extra virgin olive oil. But yeah, there's so many different fat sources to choose from, but I would just say, you know, if you've used it once, try and choose a different one as your next source. Like, don't keep repeating things over the day. Another killer is the nuts and seeds, okay? Nuts and seeds, I'm fine with it, having them a little bit, but nuts and seeds in general are harder for our body to digest. So they can be harder on our gut, and also a lot of them can be quite high in omega-6. So yeah, definitely include them in the diet. I definitely do, but like, you know, if I have nut butter on my breakfast, again, I just won't snack on nuts like later in the day. I will choose something different. The same thing also when it comes to rotation comes with everything in the diet. If you are vegan or vegetarian, you are going to need to rotate your protein sources constantly, because you get only certain amino acids in different sources. So you need to have a good variety to tick those amino acids off throughout the day. If you do eat meat and things, you don't need to worry about that, because they are complete proteins. So yeah, rotation will be important for proteins. It's also going to be important for vegetables, for all those lovely nutrients, all the polyphenols and things that we get inside these vegetables. All the different colors give us different vitamins and minerals. So keeping a rotation there is not only going to help us across our nutrient needs, but it's also going to be very good for our gut, because these are also a lot of our prebiotic sources, and that's going to help feed the gut bacteria. And looking after your gut is also going to be a really another key part of hormone balancing. Really just take rotation and apply it to every part of your diet. Right, my next tip is, right, when we're thinking about meat, so if you do eat meats, fish, all that kind of stuff, particularly on the meat side, it is highly recommended if you're trying to support your hormones to buy organic. Now my tip here, because I do appreciate organic can be expensive and it's not always an option for everyone. So my tip here is, when you go food shopping, look for discounted organic meat. I do this every time I go. Like, I always buy discounted, like, organic beef mince, for example. Like, I got a packet the other day for like £3. So look for those deals, because you could just put them in the freezer, or similarly just buy it and then you could batch cook some meals with it and then put them in the freezer. But that's a better way for you to make sure you're prioritizing getting good quality meat, because this is important when we're thinking of hormone balance, because you've got to be thinking about what is that animal being given, firstly, which could also be present inside the meat. So there could be things from antibiotics to like growth hormones. So we're going to talk about dairy next. Actually, let's move on to dairy now. So this is the next tip. So yeah, I'm against restriction in diets. I think, you know, if you don't tolerate dairy well, then of course avoid it. But I find a lot when it comes to dairy in the skin is that yes, it can definitely be a trigger for people, but sometimes it's about quality and quantity. So firstly, you may find that you can enjoy it a little bit in your diet, but it's just having it ever so occasionally, just not having it daily, because the daily intake sometimes can be just what's causing a bit of overload. But going to the quality, this is really the important part here when it comes to hormone balancing, because one of the real key aggravating factors in dairy is the growth hormones, so the insulin growth factor in there, and poor quality dairy will have a higher amount of growth hormone in. If you think back to like the cows, like welfare of how they get that milk supply, sometimes they're given more growth hormone to increase their milk supply. So the poorer the quality of dairy, the more likely it's going to have more of those kind of growth hormones in there. But I would just say on a general level, just keep dairy to, you know, in moderation. I just personally wouldn't be having it like excessively, but yeah, you can still definitely enjoy it here and there in the diet for sure. Okay, my next tip, this is really important, is look out for the hidden sugars. Okay, start reading those package labels and look for what is actually going in the food. If there's things in there you're like, I don't even know what that is, probably best to skip it. Honestly, you need to question everything nowadays. Like my boyfriend was even eating a packet of ready salted crisps in the car the other day, and he was like, oh, these taste sweet. And I said to him, I was like, they probably got sugar on them. And he turned over the packet and he was absolutely shocked that yes, like they had sugar on them. Like they weren't even like a real flavored crisp, but they had sugar on them. So honestly, it can go into so many things. So just read those labels, check what you're eating, check, you know, sauces are a real big culprit, cereals and things, granolas, oh my god, granolas are a massive culprit. You know, those kind of date bars, like dates, I'm not a huge fan of those date bars in general. What I'll do actually for you guys, I'll put on the screen right now some of my favorite snack ideas for a hormone balancing diet. So these are things I would definitely gravitate more towards. Like I'm not a fan of those like nacked bars, whatever they're called, naked bars, whatever, things like that, date balls, no. And when it comes to sugar in general, this is all about our blood sugar response, because that's what's going to be affecting the hormones from the sugar. So yeah, obviously we just want to keep our sugar intake to a minimum, but of course, you know, of course you can enjoy some treats here and there, but you know, when you do, go back to that first tip about the formula that I said, to really help support your response, at least to that sugar. I actually did do a shop with me video where I took you along my weekly food shop to give you an idea of some of the foods that I buy, and I honestly would say like the things that I buy are kind of like a hormone balancing diet food shop as well. So yeah, go check that out if you are interested to see kind of what I actually buy, and I give a lot more tips in that video as well. Another tip also to throw in as well is that if you haven't already, make sure you switch out your cooking oils. So no more sunflower oils, vegetable oils, anything like that. They need to go straight in the bin. They are so inflammatory and just a complete waste. Instead, opt for either extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil is okay, and also coconut oil. Or you can also cook with like ghee, butter, things like that as well. They're okay as well. But yeah, that is a huge switch to make, and really just try and avoid those inflammatory oils, honestly, and things that you buy. And again, there's something that sneaks into everything, like hummus, for example. Try and get one with extra virgin olive oil, and yeah, avoid all the sunflower oil. That's also a real common thing that you'll see come up in a lot of your foods. Let's talk about soy. So on to the next point. Soy. Okay, this is a really funny one. I personally, I'm not totally against soy. Like I think if you're gonna have it, make sure you get good quality soy. So organic organic tofu, organic tempeh, they can be fine. Edamame beans can also be okay. You know, those kind of real whole food sources of soy, they can be okay in small amounts. I wouldn't go excessive. Sometimes excessive intakes of soy can actually be a bit destructive from a hormone perspective. Particularly I see, you know, high soy intakes can really lighten people's periods or even stop it altogether. So yeah, just be mindful of that. But what I would personally avoid when it comes to soy is all the processed soy, like no soy fake meats. I'm not even a fan really of a lot of the soy milks and yogurts, like I said. Anything like that, go with caution. I really find the majority of the time they're more inflammatory, and from a hormone perspective, I'm just not that helpful. So yeah, you can have soy, but just again, quality over quantity. Okay guys, so I'm gonna end it off there. That is some general tips that I have when you're trying to follow a hormone balancing diet. Like I said, you can check out my shop with me if you want to go see what I buy on a weekly shop. But yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this video and if you want another video like this or any other similar video ideas that you think would help you in this area. But yeah, I hope you guys are doing well. Please do give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Mwah. Bye.